All right, it's E. Smith here. I wanted to talk over a 4 round prelim that I played earlier this week and maybe go over some slick shot how-tos and just kind of review the games. So, round one, we're on the draw. Opponent reveals Gigantha, and we have to take a mulligan. Um, so, this is kind of an example of a one-lander that you want to keep and how you want to play it out. I've alluded to before, lead on a creature instead of a Kumano. That way you can get your Spectacled Light up the stage off turn 2. Hopefully we draw a land off the top, but if not, we can at least dig for one and start deploying some Kumanos. This red-black aggro is a pretty popular matchup these days. We don't draw the second land naturally, but we are able to get in, flip a couple cards with Light up the stage, and we still don't hit a second land, which is awkward, but at least we're closer, hopefully, than we were before. Opponent's got a pretty good start here. They plotted a slick shot on turn 2 to protect it from any removal, and then they're kind of curving out with anger and more creatures. I just killed the Ember Heart. That's usually the one that'll dig them into more gas. Plus, if they only play one spell, it's kind of the same. But here they just have too much stuff. They buy it back, pump it, and then kill us. So that was not great. Having your second land come into play tapped is never good, but not the worst matchup overall. I'll touch on sideboarding briefly here before we get into the next game. Um, Basically, what I do, the most common cuts in this type of matchup is Light up the Stage and Skewer. Skewer, you can go down to 1 or 0, especially on the draw. You might not want any in certain creature matchups, but I really don't want to get flooded on Light Up the Stage in matchups where they're going to be putting pressure on me. And basically, I board in like End the Festivities, Red Cap Melee, Goblin Chain Whirler, Obliterating Bolt, and Witch Stalker Frenzy, and finally, trying to think of the last card, but let's just get into the game here. So I'm on the play this game, of course. This is kind of a risky hand in a red mirror, but it's got what we need as far as some good removal, threats, and a way to pump. So it's pretty nice getting to draw Den of the Bugbear here. I just exile their guy, and then you usually want to use the Monstrous Rage when they're tapped out. Here, we kind of make a bluff attack with the smaller Lava Runner, which they're smart not to in case we did have another Rage. They play an Ember Heart. Here, I'm just going to get in. They don't have a removal spell, so I just pass and see. I want to make them trigger prowess so I can respond and kill the thing, or at least have double interaction up. We're still waiting on a third land for our own slick shot, and there's not going to be any plotting here. Hopefully we can just play it and kill them, and I think that's what happens. I just draw the mountain off the top, if I remember correctly. Yeah, and that's exactly lethal for 5. So game 3, I'm going to be on the draw, and both decks have solid starts. What you're really looking for is multiple removal and preferably a Kumano to exile with. Here I actually decide to lead with Kumano instead of play with Fire. Just kind of try to make them commit more to the board. They plot a slick shot, but I do have removal that I know I'm going to be able to kill it with the red cap melee. So here they don't have a third land. They do have a Reckless Rage. But we'll go ahead and take care of the slick shot. Now we can play the Soulscar Mage, and with that out, and the Festivities permanently puts -1/-1 counters on the team to shrink it, still holding up the red cap melee. And Karizav's expertise is pretty good in this matchup. You kind of have to get into a spot where you know you're going to be able to threaten lethal. Um, and sometimes you kind of need stuff to go right as far as how they attack. But here, I don't block. I figure they have this trick or something. And now they have a big Hearthfire hero. They play another one. So Here I attack with 2 soul scars because I did the math and I realized I would lose to another monstrous rage if I swung out completely. And I'm not going to use the carry Zevs yet. I want to make sure I can actually close the game with it immediately in this scenario. So what he did was repump the big one, and I'm not showing lethal with the carry Zevs yet. We need to rip either a creature or another spell, and it is a Swift Spear off the top to take the 4 power one. And again, I did the math to make sure any way he blocks, he's going to die to this, and we get in for Xaxes. So round 2, I'm on the play. Got a no lander into another 1 land hand. Again, we've got the 1-drop creature and it'll light up the stage, so I'm not feeling that horrible. And again, they reveal Gigantha. So here it's some type of Boros deck with Voldaren Epicure. So I kind of see if he'll block, then I light up into 2 lands. And I just decided to use the Skewer to pick off the Epicure because I don't really know what I'm up against and I want to use my mana. Usually you want to use the skewers early if you have a good spot. And here he's revealed to be Convoke, which makes sense. They've got Thalia, but we've got the removal spell for it. And Monstrous Rage is really important in this matchup. We're able to kind of curve out here, use all our mana, Monstrous Rage on the Swift Spear, because that's the one that's probably going to be biggest. And I actually leave the Kumano on top just as a guaranteed prowess trigger. I'd rather draw that than like a land or a soul scar or something I can't really use. And how it works out, basically we're going to be able to pump the Swift Spear via prowess pre-combat, and they just scoop even though they aren't exactly dead, but we're going to wipe their board. So against Convoke, again, this is a matchup. You board out all your skewers, all your light ups, and basically all the ping effects, all the rending volleys come in. I like Witch Stalker Frenzy. I don't like Red Cat Melee here because, like I said, you have a full play set of the rending volley to bring in. Overall, it's not that bad of a matchup, but you can definitely face their nut draws the same way that you can get your own nut draws. So we've got a pretty good hand, important curve out stuff and the pieces, and then we top deck and the festivities. So they have kind of an unfortunate draw, taking a couple mulls, and basically they just concede when I wipe their board with the end festivities on turn 2. Round 3, I'm on the play. This is an example of a really good hand. Basically got all your prowess guys. We need something to turn on the skewer, but that's okay. They revealed Gigantha and started on a black-red surveil land. So probably not Rakdos Sack, but could be Rakdos mid-range or something else. And again, they have Voldaren Epicure, which immediately kind of tips me off that they're probably playing like the Tree of Perdition combo deck, which does have Fatal Push, and that's exactly why we used the Monstrous Rage when they were tapped out. Any deck that has cheap interaction, you kind of want to guarantee you can get in while you can. We're definitely flooding out a bit here, but we pick off the 2/2 from the Fable. Keep trying to apply pressure. At least we have Soakins on to follow up, but it looks like they're just going to play a Voldaren Thrill Seeker. And so we're going to hold up the Ramunap Ruins here and just try to draw a 3 damage burn spell off the top. They're definitely starting to clock us now that they've got Inti and the Thrill Seeker. But once they get to this type of board state where you know you're not going to get through, you might as well kind of block or try to trade off creatures where you can. So that's what I did there. Activate the Ramunap Ruins to put them to 3, and they don't have any flyers, but I don't draw a spell. I attack with the Hardcast Slick Shot and just hold the Gitu Lava Runner because, I can't get through on the board, and I don't want to give him any extra information. But basically, they're going to Apply pressure, we're at 19, they're at 2, so we're really hoping to draw Ramming Up Ruins or just about any spell will do it. Even another Slick Shot would do it here, and there's the Wizard's Lightning for the win. So this is kind of a tricky matchup to sideboard. I do like Goblin Chainwhirler in this type of matchup, but I don't like End the Festivities. It doesn't have a body attached, and it's just a spell. So a lot of times you will board in Chainwhirler in different matchups where you don't board in End the Festivities. I boarded out 3 Skewers and 3 Light Up, again leaving just one of each, basically for a bunch of removal and anti-life gain type stuff, just in case they get some shenanigans going. But I'm not convinced Ramp Painting Frostodon is like super in this matchup, but it at least holds its weight. We've got a pretty good curve. Obliterating Bolt can be relevant against their creatures. Definitely need to keep Inti off the board because if it stays alive, it's just going to keep accruing value. But always trying to use the most one drops in the early turns as we can. Just develop the board while keeping them under control. So here they've got a couple 2/2s. We're just gonna swing in, see what they do. They decide to keep the Goblin Shaman, and then I go ahead and kill it with the Obliterating Bolt just to make sure they can't get anything rolling with the treasure. And it was probably the right call because they do start missing land drops here. This is just kind of an attack to force damage in, play the land in the Frostodon post combat to make them think they might that we might have a monstrous rage or something, but really we're just drawing off the top. There's a Slick Shot. Decided to just keep throwing all my creatures into the red zone. They block, then sack. So it's nice that they kept the Slick Shot alive. We really need to just peel some damage or an untapped land for Den. That's pretty good, so we decide to get in there. They figure out how they want to block and trade off, so we're still ahead on board with a couple creatures. Another untapped land turns on another Den, and that's a mountain, so we fire that up. They have a Fatal Push now, so we just send the Slick Shot in. And now they have Blood Tithe, they have another Fable. They decide to trade the Blood Tithe for the Slick Shot. And then we draw Spike Field off the top, so I just hold that and hope to draw a 3 damage spell off the top. And then I think for a little bit at their end step about just firing off the Spike Field hazard, but because we still have one Light Up the Stage in the deck, I think it actually maximizes our outs to hold on to it until my turn, because even if we draw a Wizard's Lightning, that's exactly 4, we can just cast it all. Whereas the other way, like I said, if we had drawn Light Up the Stage, we would have been sad. So we're 3-0. This is the finals of the prelim. And we're up against a known blue-white control player, Mr. Toolshed. This is a one-lander that I think on the draw is acceptable, maybe not on the play, but we still have Kumano into Swiftspear. The double Wizard's Lightnings are a little awkward, so this is an example of a scenario where we're definitely going to want to plot the Slick Shot most likely once we hit a second land to guarantee we can cast those Wizard's Lightnings. We don't find a second land in 2 looks, unfortunately, so just kind of start running out creatures. They play an Omen of the Sea on the end step for 1 top, 1 bottom, so they definitely found something that they wanted. We still don't find a second land, but I just keep playing prowess creatures, and he's going to go ahead and counter this one. And this is kind of how you fight through being stuck on 1 land for a bit if it does come up. You want to play your creatures in the most optimal order that you can. So here we find a second land, just go to combat with what we already have, and they get lost. So I go ahead and plot the Slick Shot now. He plays another Omen of the Sea. So We're still digging for lands. We do have the maps now. He taps for a Teferi, which untaps 2 lands at the end step. And just kind of looking to deploy these monstrous rages whenever it's feasible, preferably when they're tapped out or tapped low. Um, but when they have mana up, it's tempting to just ignore the monstrous rage. Like, you're almost better off just firing off Wizard's Lightnings, even though Monstrous Rage theoretically would get worse as the game kind of goes on and as they have more mana and options available, especially when they have a Teferi ticking up every turn. But you kind of got to know, like, what am I willing to risk? So if they have a removal spell in response to the Monstrous Rage, obviously it's a pretty big blowout. If you have 2 Monstrous Rage, and here Mr. Toolshed actually just conceded, um, so maybe was flooded, or I don't know, but they conceded after I hit my second land. And here we go on the draw for game 2. The sideboarding here is really simple. In a lot of removal based matchups like this, you just board out 4 Monstrous Rage, and here I board in Roiling Vortex, Goblin Chain Whirler, Rampaging Frostodon, and the new card Sunspine Lynx, which I just recently added to my sideboard. But I think it's really good in this type of matchup, and in theory, it seems pretty good against the format, just having a Price of Progress type effect. Here we're probably just going to be plotting slit shots for a few turns in a row. He takes out my Kumano with a March end step. Here I deploy the slick shot thinking I could maybe just hit for 1 and then light up the stage and then plot another one, but it does get countered. They land a Narset, and so I play the slick shot. I hit them just to get the light the stage off, and then skewer the Narset and plot another slick shot. So I've still got the Gitu Lava Runner from the light up. I draw yet another slick shot, but really low on actual things that trigger prowess this game. He's got a Wandering Emperor, gain some life, 18 on turn 5. I plot another slick shot, and this is part of the game where it's kind of getting away from you. So I go for the double slick shot. I play the Kumano, and definitely going to get in with everything here. But if they have another, yeah, there's the Wandering Emperor. I couldn't fire up Den because they have the Field of Ruin, and even with the activation, they could field me and then have the mana for Wandering Emperor after that, so I just concede. Game 3, I'm on the play against Blue-White Control with the same sideboard strategy I just talked about. You got a pretty good opener. I mean, Light Up the Stage is probably one of the most important cards in the matchup. We have 3 lands and a good creature curve plus a burn spell, so can't ask for much more. A lot of these blue-white decks these days seem to have Elspeth Smite, so I'm kind of attacking into it and just plotting the slick shot, see if he wants to use his removal spell, and he misses a second land drop, which is pretty good for me. Here I just attack with the Swift Spear again and decide to plot another slick shot. I'm going to hold both my spells for next turn. So I can go slick shot, spell, spell. He plays a tap land, but I'm going to do exactly that. And I drew a Monastery Swift Spear. So assuming this Wizard's Lightning resolves, and I'll go ahead and light up the stage, hopefully find another spell or maybe another 1-drop creature. And hold the land until after the light up the stage resolves in case we hit one off that. So I go through all our triggers, and we find double Soulscar Mage. So not the best, but at least we have something to do with our last mana here, and we're only 1 away from Den activation. He uses the Elspeth Smite that I suspected he had on the Slickshot Show Off, and we've still got 1 Soulscar in reserve, and they just pack it up, presumably not hitting a 3rd land. So I hope going through this video was somewhat educational and interesting. I like playing this deck a lot, and it's fun to sometimes review the replays and talk over it. So yeah, enjoy.